From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
A new report puts a dim light on farmers' view of the economy. New meat export data. Preparing for USDA's latest crop estimate.
Well, you could always have kind of a game-changing report in August.
Can the United Kingdom produce enough food after it leaves the European Union? And packing in the alpacas.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon in for Clinton Griffiths. The Ag Economy Barometer measuring farmer sentiments from around the nation plummeting to its lowest one-month decline in nearly 3 years. The Purdue University Cme Ag Economy Barometer, based on a survey with hundreds of producers and agribusinesses, dropping 26 points, down to an index of 117 in July. The drop in sentiment fueling with trade war concerns and decreasing commodity prices.
Farmers are very concerned about the trade conflicts. In our July survey, 54% of the respondents said that they expected a trade war. And then when we asked about the impact on income, over 70% of the respondents that expected an impact said that they thought their income would decline by 10% or more. So very, very concerned about the trade issues.
Some farmers feeling that same sentiment with trade concerns.
We have to have fair trade across the board, and that's why I hope President Trump is trying to negotiate with his business dealings, that he realizes that the United States is getting unfair practices in certain trade deals, and it's unfortunately that soybeans have caught the brunt of it. But to be honest with you, soybean has been more of a topic on a lot of people throughout the country than it normally would have, so more people know what a soybean is.
Mintert saying the most negative response this time around came when asked if farmers are willing to make big investments. He says he has not received that many negative comments since March of 2016.
Every month we ask a question that asks people whether or not now is a good time to make large investments in their farming operation. And the percentage of people saying that this was a bad time jumped to 73% from 60% a month earlier. So it's really a pretty big change. In fact, when you look at the way that question's analyzed with both whether it's a good time or a bad time, it was the most negative response we've gotten to that question since March of 16.
Late Tuesday, the U.S. Trade Representative's office released its list of $16 billion worth of Chinese goods that will be assessed 25% in additional tariffs. This is the second phase of the $50 billion tariff package. The administration says this action is in response to unfair trade practices and intellectual property theft by China. This list contains a number of industrial products, including pistons for tractors, some seed planters, and irrigation systems. Unless there's a change in policy, these tariffs go into effect in 2 weeks. 2 Chinese researchers were charged last week with conspiracy to steal trade secrets after taking U.S. rice technology, a case dating back to 2013. According to Reuters, a U.S. grand jury indicted 2 Chinese researchers for conspiracy to steal trade secrets and conspiracy to commit interstate transportation of stolen property. The 2 traveled to Arkansas and Kansas to visit rice research and production facilities. U.S. Customs later found stolen rice seeds in their luggage. The seeds were developed by Ventria Bioscience, which uses technology to create rice seeds with certain proteins. With concerns about theft of intellectual property, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham is touting President Trump's "Get Tough" stance on China. While touring factories in his home state, Graham says the president is correct to unite the world against Chinese business and trade practices.
They steal our intellectual property. They make steel in such large quantities to sell it below cost, which has put us out of the business of steel making in America. Georgetown Steel is coming back in Georgetown, South Carolina, because of the steel tariffs. Tariffs are not the best way to deal with this, but it's the only way on the table right now.
Graham says his goal is to rewrite the rules of the World Trade Organization. He feels the U.S. should be able to go to an international body and have a fair hearing instead of slapping on tariffs. Looking at protein exports, the U.S. Meat Export Federation says the first half of the year was strong for pork shipments until tariffs were implemented in 2 of the key export markets. According to USMEF analysis, for the first half of 2018, pork export volume was 2% ahead of last year's record pace for the first half of 2018. Value was up 5% from January to June. In April, there were record pork exports, but then tariffs were implemented. In China, tariffs on pork jumped from 12 to 37 and then to 62%. As far as beef, for the first 6 months of the year, exports set a record pace in both volume and value. Beef exports were up 9% from a year ago. The value of that beef toppled $4 billion, up 21% from a year ago. USMEF says the beef export market has never topped the $4 billion mark before August. USDA believes the cattle expansion phase is finally starting to slow down. However, the department believes near-term production will increase in 2019. That's because replacement heifer numbers are declining, but the calf crop is increasing.
The latest cattle inventory report found the number of replacement heifers has declined from last year, while the 2018 calf crop has increased about 2%. The calf crop number tells a story of continued larger beef production for 2019, while the lower heifer number suggests herd growth is slowing. Combine the retention rate with cow and heifer slaughter data, and they collectively point to a significantly slowing herd growth rate.
Henderson says the drought in the southern plains is a factor too. Beef cow slaughter is running 11% over last year, the highest number since 2013. Heifer slaughter numbers to date are up 9%, also the highest in 5 years. A Brazilian judge is stopping the use of products containing glyphosate in the country. The judge ruling the products with the chemical cannot be registered, and existing registration will be suspended within the next 30 days. Glyphosate is widely used in products like Roundup. According to Politico, Monsanto, the maker of Roundup, saying in a statement Brazilian farmers have relied on the chemical for more than 40 years. Mike Hoffman is in for crop comments this morning. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Betsy. First, we're going to head down to Union County, Tennessee. The owners of Crabtree Farm saying the corn crops look great in the northwestern part of the state this year. About 24% of the corn crop is in the denting stage in the state. 71% is rated good to excellent, according to USDA. And Matt Braun over in Denison, Minnesota, showing us another pass on the field during sod harvest. Matt says he's moving a lot of sod because there's a housing boom, which helps business. The sod is cutting nicely as well this year. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast a little bit as we start the day, mainly Oklahoma back into the southwest. By later today, we'll see areas where thunderstorms are occurring with a little bit of wind. No widespread wind, though, as you can see. Southwestern sections overnight tonight may be a little windy, and then heading into the day tomorrow turns a little windier as we head through the day in places, but nothing widespread appearing so far. We'll have your forecast coming up in a few minutes. First, though, here are some hometown temps.
Keeping track of the shifting market prices has never been so easy. Get the latest commodity prices sent directly to your cell phone with market updates. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
Up next in analysis, what can we expect this week as USDA unveils its big August grain reports? We'll discuss next in agribusiness. As the United Kingdom prepares to leave the European Union, can British farmers produce enough food post-Brexit? And a growing Chinese middle class puts pressure on fleece farmers' demand for a pack of alpacas later on Ag Day. Let's see if we had a turnaround Tuesday. For that, we head to the CME floor in Chicago.
We've had some choppy and mixed trade here in the grains, with wheat and corn leaning a little bit lower while soybeans leaning a bit higher. The big news for the day was yesterday's crop conditions report that came out after the close, and we saw a bit of an unexpected decline, or certainly decline more than expected in the soybeans, corn down just slightly as well, and that's given us some strength in the soybeans. Mostly fund short covering, I believe, but either way, the soybeans have found some strength on that. A little bit of heaviness across the board in livestock. Let's talk about hogs. We started the day on a little bit of a firmer tone, and as the day wore on, we gave up much of the gains and ended up trading lower on the day. But overall, I think this is still maybe the beginnings of a bottoming formation, hopefully, in the hogs. I think at some point here, we're going to see hogs as a bit of a value. I think we're at these price levels now. It's just a matter of feeling safe to come in and buy. And the longer we can trade sideways, I think the more likely that we'll start to see the buyers pop back up in markets once again. Feeder cattle rather heavy here today, breaking the 50-day moving average support, breaking trendline support, and trading below some very key support levels. This is a concern and could say that we might be rolling over to the downside. If that is the case, that could eventually take the live cattle down with it as well. So keep an eye out from that. It could be very interesting next couple days in the cattle complex. Again, this is Ted Seifert of Zaner Ag Hedge coming to you from the CME floor.
All eyes in the grain sector will be focused on USDA Friday when the department releases its August WASDE and crop production estimates. Tyne Morgan takes a closer look in this morning's analysis.
Here now with Matt Bennett of Bennett Consulting. Matt, looking ahead, we have a USDA report this week. Typically, what are you watching when it comes to this report?
Well, you could always have kind of a game-changing report in August. Obviously, folks are looking for a specific yield. You're seeing anything from low 170s all the way up to 180.
Right.
So this is going to be highly anticipated for sure. Now, obviously, that number is not going to be the gospel. Last year, we saw a fair amount of movement after we came out with the August number. Where are we going to end up at? And so I guess my gut feeling at this point is that 175 area is probably my over-under, if you will. I came in a little bit higher than that for my official estimates for Reuters and Bloomberg, but after seeing more of the crop this week, I guess I've just scaled that back a little bit.
Yeah, because I know where you set in Illinois, in central Illinois, you're really, really good, but then you've seen some of these other areas in the Corn Belt that are struggling this year, and it has to impact the national yield.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the last couple of years, we've had a lot of folks that have been able to come to the table that maybe don't typically have the 200 plus production, that have had 220, 230, 240 farm averages. Some of those areas are going to be lucky to have half that this year, and a lot of the same areas that I'm talking about. And so whenever you start to extract that kind of production, for instance, maybe in northern Iowa or southeastern South Dakota or southwestern Minnesota, that's a big production area. You can't take too many bushels away from that without affecting the national average.
But what has to happen? I mean, really, what needs to happen in order to drive this market higher?
Well, I think there's a lot of factors that are going to support the corn market for sure, in my opinion. World demand, you're looking at taking world stocks down over a 2-year window from 230 million metric tons to maybe sub 150. That's an impressive drawdown in stocks. And so, in my opinion, if you have anything under 180 bushel national yield here in the U.S., I think that the supply and demand outlook, both U.S. and world, is going to be enough to keep this market well supported.
All right, Matt Bennett, Bennett Consulting, thanks so much for joining us. We need to take a quick break here on Ag Day, and then we'll have a check of your weather.
For advice on the best way to be profitable on your farm, contact Matt at 217-273-1133. Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
Welcome back to Ag Day with meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, this area, this southern Iowa, Missouri, some parts of Illinois, they just keep missing those rains. What does this root zone moisture map tell you?
Well, it's really up to date. Number one, it comes from a NASA satellite, and it's showing the big elephant in the room is that dry area over the Missouri and central Mississippi valleys. And unfortunately, that area has gotten worse since last week when we showed the root zone moisture map to you. So much of that area just extremely dry for this time of the year. You can see most of the rest of the Corn Belt isn't doing too bad. There's some areas that are a little wet, some areas that are a little dry. Texas a little dry. You folks are probably going to start to get a little more rain though in the pattern that we're kind of heading into here. So that is probably some good news for there. Here's our map this morning. Area of low pressure near Detroit, cold front southward from there. Scattered showers and thunderstorms will be along that front. You can see a secondary front coming into the northern plains. That won't have a lot of moisture with it, but a few spotty showers by later on this afternoon. Most of the showers and thunderstorms, though, will be at least pretty close to this cold front here and hit and miss in the southwest as well as the southeast. Heading through tonight, we'll see things kind of dry out as they typically do. Although along a slow-moving cold front like this, sometimes you will get nighttime thunderstorms, and that is a definite possibility as we head toward tomorrow morning. Heading through the afternoon hours, that front continues to sag southward, so there'll be scattered thunderstorms all the way back into West Texas out of this one, scattered throughout the southwest and a little bit along that secondary front as well. So precipitation estimate Over the past 24 hours, you can see the majority of it has fallen kind of southwest of the Great Lakes, St. Louis area, southwestward from there. So those dry sections do occasionally get a little bit of rain, but our model isn't showing too much coming up. The next 36 hours, a lot of the rain is farther south into the parts of the Tennessee and southern Mississippi Valley, as well as parts of the Northeast. Taking a look at high temperatures this afternoon, lots of 80s across the plains, even a few 90s sprinkled in there, especially southern plains, obviously. Most of Texas 90s, triple digits, parts of the desert Southwest. Low temperatures tonight, 60s to near 70, most of the Corn Belt, upper 70s by the time you get to the Gulf Coast, and then more 80s as we head through the day tomorrow. That cool front brings drier air, but it's still kind of on the warm side, as you can see there. But the trough tries to dig in here, but the ridge builds into the western plains, and then you can see the cutoff low for a little while there over the weekend over the Great Lakes, and then a stronger trough begins to dig into the northern plains by Wednesday of next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, Eugene, Oregon, hazy sunshine, very hot, high of 96 degrees. Fort Smith, Arkansas, partly sunny, an afternoon thunderstorm pretty likely, high of 91. And Buffalo, New York, mostly cloudy, a couple of showers or storms around, high of 80.
Up next, a warning this morning about Britain's ability to produce enough food when it splits from the rest of Europe. And can this pack of alpacas help keep up with demand for its fine fleece?
Ag Day. Brought to you by Top Third Ag Marketing. Farmer first with a plan for every market.
An Idaho-based company which developed a potato that's resistant to bruising and blight is now stretching its research legs into CRISPR technology. The J.R. Simplot company has acquired gene editing licensing rights in a deal with Dow DuPont. The gene editing technology called CRISPR speeds up the process of breeding generations of plants to get a certain desirable trait. It was developed by researchers at MIT and Harvard. Simplot believes the technology will allow it to produce crops that have longer shelf lives, like strawberries, avocados, and of course, potatoes. And news from our partners at the Packer, the government of India has given Washington apple shippers a 6-week delay on the implementation of a 25% retaliatory tariff against U.S. apples. The tariff is in response to the U.S. tariff on steel and aluminum imports. The apple tariff is now rescheduled to go into effect in mid-September. According to the Packer, Washington apple exporters don't ship much volume to India in the late summer months, but shipments will increase again beginning in November and December. The 25% tariff would be in addition to the 50% tariff already in place. USDA says India is the second largest export market for U.S. apples behind Mexico. A farmer group is warning that the United Kingdom could run out of food by this time next year if a trade deal is not worked out with the European Union. The UK, as you may know, is scheduled to leave the European Union in March. The National Farmers Union says the UK is unable to produce enough food on its own to feed the nation. The group called for the government to prioritize food security in Brexit negotiations. The NFU says Britain producers produce just under 2/3 of its own food. Most of the rest comes from the EU. When we come back, keeping up with demand for fleece in the country is next.
In the Country, sponsored by the all-new Kubota Sidekick, a utility vehicle that lets you climb more, cover more, tow more, and enjoy more. Visit KubotaUSA.com.
With a growing middle class in China, demand for alpaca fleece is on the rise. Alpaca farmers in Australia are sending big shipments to the Asian nation. Alpaca fleece is known for its soft touch and suitability to clothing. Those qualities pique the interest of Chinese manufacturers. With such growing demand, dozens of alpaca farmers from across Australia have now formed a co-op to ramp up exports. At least 10 tons of raw fleece are being sent to China for processing each month. Though the industry is growing, the challenge for Australia now is to get more farmers into the alpaca industry with much bigger herds. If that doesn't happen, it's feared Chinese importers may end up looking elsewhere.
It's about how we say the alpaca industry is moving from emerging to a developing industry. I don't think even if we had 70 million like Merino, we still wouldn't be able to fulfill their needs, I don't think. But we'll give it a stab with what we've got.
As far as alpacas in the United States, they were first imported from South America in the mid-1980s. According to the Alpaca Owners Association, the current registered U.S. alpaca herd is about 250,000 head. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great day.